Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Club. I'm Alex.
I'm Pete.
Justin is away for the time being, but he will be back very shortly. Yes, he's drunk and dead in the gutter, so stay tuned for that. We have 3 great comic books to make up for it, though, guys. We're going to talk about Ultimatum number 4, Captain Britain and the MI-13 Annual number 1, and Batman and Robin number 1. So let's get into it with Ultimatum number 4. Pete, you're a fan of comics.
I am.
Yes, so what do you think about Ultimatum, the crossover that is changing the Ultimates line forever?
I don't know if I'd say that. I would say that if you like...
By the way, we're drinking Brooklyn Summer Ale, just so you guys know.
It's summertime.
Yeah, it's very refreshing.
Summertime in Brooklyn. If the art is just... What's great about this comic is it sucks so hard I don't even notice because I am so just looking at the pictures.
That is a really, really nice way to put it. You know, I gotta say, I feel very conflicted about this book in a weird way.
Yeah.
I feel very conflicted because I feel like Jeff Loeb has become almost an easy target for comic book reviewers.
Really nice guy, though.
He's a great guy. I know some of you might disagree with me on this, but he has written some of my favorite comics in the past. This is, writing-wise, I think, one of the worst comic books, one of the worst professional, mainstream, mainline comic books I've ever read. And the thing about it is I don't want to just bash it outright or make fun of it, because I feel like there's got to be something there. There's got to be something there that's
I think one of the things...
And it almost feels too easy to bash it like that.
But one of the things that Jeff Loeb does is he does have... In his writing, he does set up some great action scenes, like, spoiler, people's arms getting cut off, and fun, you're gonna get there's gonna be some moments where oh wow, look at that, you know what I mean? It's not as well, built up to, or you know what I mean?
You know what, I think, actually, you're absolutely right, and I think that's a really great way of putting it, that what you want out of a really good comic story, whether you notice it or not, is that some way the action is coming out of the character. That it's telling you something about the characters, it's telling you something about the world. This is telling us nothing about the characters, nothing about the world, but there are big, over-the-top, gigantic action scenes that aren't deserved by anything, they aren't warranted by anything, which is the essential problem, but they are there, and they look very pretty based on what David Finch is doing. You know, I was just rereading X-Men, the Jim Lee, Chris Claremont stuff for the X-Men Forever Alpha that they put out. That is so much crappier than I remembered. Seriously.
Well, you were different then.
That's the thing that I'm saying about it, is that, at the time I was like, this is the most awesome comic book I've ever read in my entire life. But looking back on it, even though I love Chris Claremont, I love Jim Lee, it's inscrutable and almost impossible to read. And I think for a kid reading this right now, maybe it's the same thing. This is the most awesome thing ever.
Exactly.
And then 10, 20 years down the road, you read it, and you're like, oh man, what am I thinking?
It's like Thundercats. I go back and I watch it, and I was like, are you kidding me? Really?
Yeah, me and 6 Feet Under.
I do want to say, what's very interesting is I find myself kind of having flashbacks of Spider-Man Tom McFarlane days, with a lot of bit of David Finch's art, especially when he does capes and stuff like that.
By the way, I want to put this challenge to you guys, especially in the comment section about this. This is why I'm feeling sort of roundabout about it. I want to be clear. I don't say pick this up at all, and I do not think this is a good comic. But at the same time, I think challenge yourself not to be like, oh, this sucks, and tear things down, but try to find something good and something interesting even in the worst comic book. Is that fair?
That's an interesting challenge.
Cool. We're running a little over about this, so let's move on and very briefly talk about the Captain Britain and the MI-13 Annual number 1. Also, sadly, the last annual from the title. What'd you think about this?
Well, I was real excited about it, just because Captain Britain has been really knocking out of the park and so much fun and everything they do. So I was excited, this is going to be, a one-shot, a special thing to focus on somebody. Here you have a girl who's kind of like a shapeshifter. What's that?
Are you dying? You just pause for a second.
Oh, I burped. Excuse me.
Gross.
who's a shapeshifter, and you're like, oh man, she's in hell, but she likes it, and like it's an interesting perspective, but I never felt like it kind of like got somewhere and got me excited about it. I felt like this was an interesting read with an interesting character, but I was never like, man, I want more more with her now.
You know what? I disagree with you a little bit. I did want more. For those of you who haven't picked it up, there's 2 stories in this annual focusing on different perspectives. Megan, Captain Britain's former girlfriend, is trapped in hell. I was a little disappointed by the second story, which was like a very classic X-Men story, except they're playing cricket instead of baseball. But the first story, it ended where it teases the next storyline coming up in Captain Britain, and I wanted more of that story. I felt it was just getting to a place where I was like, wow, this is kind of cool and interesting to see Megan deal with hell in a very different way, and I wanted to see more of that.
That's the thing. I was like, oh, this is interesting, but I didn't. There was just something about it that was just like a little bit like I didn't feel. I didn't feel like I was really.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's Paul Cornell's writing style. He tends to be a little removed from stuff, though.
But
would you say pick it up?
No, I wouldn't. But I would say the series don't miss an issue.
I would say pick it up, especially if you're a Captain Britain and Megan fan, like I am. Excalibur. What?
Is that like an E?
That's an E to the W.
Oh.
This is a very reserved show, you guys. Last but not least, we're going to talk about Batman and Robin, #1 from Grant Morrison and Frank Whiteley. What did you think about this with the new Batman and the new Robin?
I was like, but this was awesome.
So first you were like, wah, and then you were like, wah,
I was like, well, all right. Yeah. And I like the way that they did that. And the tension between them is great. I mean, obviously the art's fantastic. And I'm a little spoiled because it's tough to be like, Superman was so great, All-Star Superman, that like the art kind of brings me back there a little bit. And I gotta kind of...
Oh, yeah. This is almost a no-brainer of a pickup, pretty much. Because it's Grant Morrison and Frank Whiteley. Nobody works together better than the two of them do. I do feel like this was slightly later on story than I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
That was my only one qualm with it.
Yeah, they're just...
But I agree. It totally, more than anything, it teases the relationship between them. It's all building up to a reveal of this is the first time Batman and Robin are on the town. And it's interesting, the panel structure, I think, throughout the entire thing, we only get extreme close-ups or extreme far away of Batman and Robin until they say, okay, this is it for the first time anywhere, the new Batman and Robin. And then we get a double-page splash of them where we can see them clearly for the first time. And it's really cool. It's thrilling, and this is what Grant Morrison on Batman should have been since the beginning.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's very exciting. I love the perspective of it, and like how it's not just like, all right, we're together, this is going to be great. The who they really are plays a lot into it. And
I am so happy that Nightwing is not just Batman light.
Yeah.
He's still Nightwing, but he's dealing with the idea of, okay, what does it mean to be Dick Grayson as Batman? And that Grant Morrison is a smart enough writer to make that a different character.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool.
And it's not, you're not reading it being like, oh man, I miss Batman. It's just enjoyable. It's different and enjoyable, and it sits in itself in a way that's very, very entertaining.
Yeah, I totally agree. Cool. That is it for this time. If you have a question, you can write us at our new email address, comicbookclublive@gmail.com.
Hey, Gmail.
What?
Moving up.
Yeah, sorry. Moving on up to a free email address in the sky. That's how that song goes, right?
Yeah.
If you can check out our blog, popcultureshock.com/cbclub. Check out our iTunes podcast, Comic Book Club Live.
And if you're ever in New York City on a Tuesday night at 8 o'clock, come see us at the Pit. Someone came. Someone saw our show on YouTube and actually came.
And
it was
jumped
awesome.
through the computer screen and into our faces. It was the coolest thing. Very briefly, a little plug at the end, because they asked me to do this. Our former network mates, Comic Book Orange, are back. So check them out on YouTube at their channel as well.
Sweet.
Yeah! It's all coming back, you guys. It's going to be hard to do.
Okay.